and welcome to our morning edition of Arirang News. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. U.S. President Donald Trump is set to sit down for talks with Chinese President Xi Jinping in Beijing today. Eyes are now on what the leaders of the world's two largest economies will discuss regarding trade, Iran, and Taiwan issues. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he secretly visited the UAE and met its president since the outbreak of the Iran war, saying it led to a historic breakthrough. But the UAE denied this, saying claims about the visit were entirely unfounded. With less than a month left until the June 3rd local elections, official candidate registration began today. Over the next 2 days, contenders will now formally join the race through the registration process and begin official campaigning, such as taking part in street rallies and televised debates on May 21st. We begin this morning in Beijing. U.S. President Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping are set to hold talks as Washington and Beijing look to steady strained relations. The leaders of the world's two largest economies are expected to tackle a range of issues, from trade disputes to broader security concerns. Our Kim Jun-ong starts us off.
U.S. President Donald Trump has arrived in Beijing for high-stakes discussions with Chinese President Xi Jinping. Trump was welcomed by Chinese Vice President Han Zheng and flag-waving crowds chanting greetings. The two-day trip marks Trump's first visit to China since 2017 and his first in-person meeting with Xi since their summit in Busan last year. Official events begin Thursday with a welcome ceremony and summit talks between the two leaders. They will later tour the Temple of Heaven together before attending a state banquet in the evening. On Friday, Trump and Xi are scheduled to meet for a photo session, followed by tea and a lunch meeting. Trade is expected to rank high on the agenda. Ahead of the visit, Trump said in a social media post that he would urge Xi to open up China as Washington pushes for a more favorable business environment for U.S. firms operating in China. Joining Trump on the trip are 17 top U.S. executives, including Tesla's Elon Musk and Nvidia's Jensen Huang, with U.S. companies hoping to resolve long-standing business and regulatory issues with Beijing. He also made clear that trade talks remain his top priority over the Iran situation, saying he does not need Xi's help in dealing with Iran.
I don't think we need any help with Iran, to be honest with you. We have a lot of things to discuss. I wouldn't say Iran is one of them, to be honest with you, because we have Iran very much under control.
The global superpowers are expected to discuss trade tensions and business ties, as well as major geopolitical issues, including the war in Iran and Washington's relationship with Taiwan. Kim Jun-ong, Arirang News.
So Iran, trade, and Taiwan issues are expected to top the agenda as U.S. President Donald Trump meets Chinese President Xi Jinping in Beijing for high-stakes talks today. For more, we're joined today by Dr. Andrew Millard, head of the Department of International Relations at Taiwan National University. Professor Millard, thanks for coming on today.
Good morning. Thanks for having me again.
So a lot of attention is focused on what Trump and Xi will discuss regarding the Iran war. So just before leaving Washington, Trump said he does not need China's help. What appears to be the U.S. strategy here, and what role could China's Xi Jinping play in the conflict?
So this is not surprising that Donald Trump made this statement that the U.S. Doesn't need China's help. This is really Donald Trump projecting this show of strength of the U.S., trying to avoid any sign of weakness. Because and this is very important, what we see right now in this summit is kind of the positions have changed a little bit. China is now in an incredibly strong position, arguably one of the strongest positions it's ever been in terms of its rivalry with the United States. So Donald Trump, he's going into this showing every sign of strength that he can, not wanting to show weakness to China's administration. Now, when it comes to Iran, was he true? Was it right? Arguably, you could say yes. I mean, the Americans, they have a couple of options. They could either back down, they could just go back to the negotiations and come up with some deal, but maybe that would leave them looking a little bit weak. Or another option is the US has not used its full military capabilities against Iran. That's one option they do have. So, I mean, technically he's right. They could do it without China, but I think China also could play a very big role. We know that Araki, the Iranian foreign minister, was in Beijing last week. So China will be supporting Iran. It will be slightly more covertly, sort of behind the scenes, but they are playing a role. And we know that China is a very big importer of Iranian oil. So even though China has been very quiet on the Iran war so far, it will be feeling the effects, especially as its economy is an export-driven economy. So maybe the strategy from China is maybe they want to use this as a little bit of leverage, potentially in other areas, for example, maybe Taiwan, where they could see this playing a little bit of a role.
Right. I'm glad you just mentioned Taiwan because there's also speculation that Beijing is expected to press Trump on this issue of Taiwan. And under pressure from Beijing, Trump actually earlier indicated an openness to rethinking U.S. support for Taiwan, which alarmed its backers. So how do you think the talks could unfold on this matter and other geopolitical issues?
I mean, for me, this is the million-dollar question. So I think of all of the various issues that they will be discussing in this summit, in this visit, I think Taiwan is going to be probably the most complicated issue. And so what we see from China is maybe China is trying to push and pressure the United States to change its position towards Taiwan. Now, this is very important because for the past 40, 50 years, the US, even though they followed the one China policy, they have been still militarily supplying Taiwan, providing them with support, saying they would defend Taiwan. But they have also said that officially they do not support Taiwanese independence. This is the wording. What China may push for is that they may push the US to change this wording to that they officially oppose Taiwanese independence. So this would be quite a big shift, a big change in the US policy towards Taiwan. And we know over the past year, Donald Trump, he has been much more critical against Taiwan. He put 15% tariffs on them. He's accused them of stealing semiconductor manufacturing from the US. So maybe China does see this as an opportunity where it can force a little bit of change in the US position.
I see. And a range of economic issues is also expected to dominate the talks, including trade, tariffs, and rare earths. How do you see the meeting playing out on the economic front?
So again, so you just mentioned this in the short video clip before our interview. Donald Trump, he said before leaving for Beijing that the economy, that the opening up of the Chinese economy, this was his #1 priority. When he gets to Beijing, the first thing he said he's going to talk about with Xi is this issue of the economy, trade, and getting China to open up, change some of its regulations to allow basically a more level playing field for US companies in China. So I think this is going to be a very big part of this summit for sure. When it comes to specifics, I think as we've seen, agriculture, that's been a very big topic over the past few months, really because of the tariffs that Donald Trump put on China, and then China's response by saying, look, we're not going to buy agricultural products, in particular soybeans from the US. This has had a huge impact domestically for Donald Trump. So that'll be a major issue. Tariffs, I think, will be less of an issue this time, just because the Supreme Court decision and various decisions in the US mean that this is a less viable option now for Donald Trump. But when it comes to rare earths, we also know that for the past year, Donald Trump, he's been very focused on maintaining and guaranteeing access to rare earths, not just from China, but globally, various different sources. So I think when it comes to that, Donald Trump would be very happy if he could guarantee or secure some sort of negotiation, some sort of deal when it comes to rare earths. But of course, to support all of this, he's taking with him this big delegation of, I think, 17 CEOs of very powerful US conglomerates. So this will provide a lot of support for this argument too.
I see. And joining Trump in China this week are more than a dozen U.S. executives, including, CEOs of Tesla, Elon Musk, and Apple's Tim Cook. And NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang also got on Air Force One at the last minute after a last-minute invite. What message does this send, and what are these U.S. tech companies hoping to achieve from this trip?
Right. So, this is very important. So what we can see with this list of CEOs, these aren't just random CEOs from some small or medium-sized companies. These are big powerhouses. These are the influential CEOs of major companies in the US, major global companies. So this is a very positive sign that Donald Trump is taking this. This is not just rhetorical. This is not just Donald Trump saying, oh, hey, Mr. Xi, we want to have more trade. Let's start changing some regulations. He's taking this big group of powerful CEOs so that this is a clear indication. We are here. We are ready. We want to be investing more. We want to do more trade with China. But right now, it's the Chinese regulations, various obstacles, various challenges that are hindering this. So from that side, it's very, very positive. And this is, to be honest, this is quite common. So if you go back to 2018, for example, in Korea, we saw when President Moon visited Kim Jong-un in Pyongyang, he also took with him quite a large delegation of South Korean CEOs for the exact same reason, to show the intent that we are here ready to invest. Now, the situation is a little bit different. Here, maybe you could also argue it shows a little bit of a change in this relationship, and maybe we could also say it's a little bit of a sign of weakness, that maybe the US look like they're going to China. Maybe they're starting to beg a little bit for the Chinese to change, to open up, because it's needed for them. So there's a couple of ways we can look at this, but really this summit, lots of issues, going to be very, very interesting to see how it all turns out.
Right. We'll have to see how that goes. All right, Professor Miller, thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Over in the Middle East, conflicting claims emerged between Israel and the United Arab Emirates after Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said he secretly visited the Gulf nation during the recent war with Iran, only for the UAE to publicly deny the meeting ever took place. Meanwhile, tensions in the Gulf also escalated as Iran accused Kuwait of unlawfully detaining 4 Iranian nationals, allegedly linked to the IRGC. Our Lee Seung-jae has more.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he secretly visited the United Arab Emirates during the recent war with Iran and held talks with UAE President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed. According to Netanyahu's office, the meeting resulted in what it described as a historic breakthrough between the two countries. However, the UAE quickly denied the claim, calling reports of Netanyahu's visit entirely unfounded. In a statement, the UAE Foreign Ministry said relations with Israel are conducted openly under the framework of the Abraham Accords and are not based on unofficial or non-transparent arrangements. The ministry also denied reports that any Israeli military delegation had entered the country. The Abraham Accords were signed during U.S. President Donald Trump's first term and established normalized relations between Israel and several Arab states, including the UAE. Meanwhile, Iran is accusing Kuwait of unlawfully attacking an Iranian boat and detaining 4 Iranian nationals near a Gulf island reportedly used by U.S. forces. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi called the incident an illegal act and demanded the immediate release of the detainees. Tehran claims the confrontation took place near an island used by American forces to launch strikes against Iran. Kuwait's Interior Ministry said Tuesday that security forces arrested 4 individuals linked to Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps as they attempted to enter the country by sea. Kuwaiti authorities did not release further details on the operation or specify what charges the suspects may face. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
And here in Korea, official candidate registration for the June 3rd local election starts today. The ruling Democratic Party and main opposition People Power Party are wrapping up their candidate lineup as a fierce political battle is expected in the next few weeks. Our political correspondent An Sung-jin covers the process and the latest candidate lineup.
With less than 3 weeks left, local elections are entering a decisive phase here in Korea as candidates move from preliminary campaigning to officially registering to run for office. Contenders now formally join the race through the official registration process from May 14th and 15th, leaving around 20 days till the vote. Now let's take a closer look at some of the finalized candidate lineups for the 16 metropolitan mayoral and gubernatorial races. Starting with Seoul, one of the country's key battlegrounds, the capital has taken shape as a two-way contest between the DP's candidate Chung Won-ho and the incumbent Mayor Oh Se-hoon of the PPP. Now, if you look over here in the side in Gyeonggi-do province, Korea's most populous province with roughly 13 million residents, the gubernatorial race is set to make history with the DP's Choo Mi-ae and the PPP's Yang Yang-ja marking the first female head-to-head race for a metropolitan governor position. Now, a tendency we see in the candidate lineup for this election is that the main opposition PPP has named most of its incumbent figures. If we see over here, all four PPP candidates in the Gangwon-do and Chungcheong-do regions, which normally act as a casting vote area, are either current mayors or governors. Similarly, the traditional conservative Gyeongsang-do region, another major battleground, has 4 out of 5 of its candidates as current heads, as the PPP seeks to defend its regional base and strongholds through high-profile figures, and as the ruling party attempts to make inroads. With these candidates and their strong ambitions, how have the ruling and opposition parties been unveiling their competing election strategies? The ruling Democratic Party is framing its main goal around regional economic development by establishing mega special districts focused on advanced industries such as robotics and biotechnology, offering companies tax incentives. The DP is also promoting a series of welfare-focused pledges, including climate insurance programs, help centers for the elderly, and other community-oriented proposals. The main opposition People Power Party is centering its campaign on housing and solving cost of living issues, such as a housing program that would expand long-term rental contracts and transportation subsidies. It also unveiled policies targeting investment for scientific research and small businesses. Official campaigning will begin on May 21st, with candidates taking part in street rallies and televised debates. Early voting is scheduled for May 29th and 30th, while the main election will take place on June 3rd. As the campaign season is now fully underway, attention is turning to which party can deliver the most persuasive policies and messages in the upcoming local election battle. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
South Korea and the United States held high-level defense talks in Washington this week amid ongoing discussions over the transfer of wartime operational control. The Korea-U.S. Integrated Defense Dialogue, which took place from Tuesday to Wednesday, brought together senior defense and foreign affairs officials from both countries to review alliance cooperation and discuss ways to strengthen their combined defense posture. Both sides agreed to continue implementing agreements reached at last year's summit and security consultative meeting, while pledging closer coordination on security goals across the Korean Peninsula and the Indo-Pacific. Although OPCON transfer was expected to be a key topic, the official statement did not provide details on any progress. President Lee Jae-myung has went out to a shipyard to seek ways to raise the country's shipbuilding competitiveness. Noting the sector as a promising business, he called for a system where outcomes can be equally shared. Our Yoon Jang-min reports.
Hitting the road on Wednesday to the country's southeastern city of Ulsan, President Lee Jae-myung toured a shipyard where LNG carriers are built. Meeting with shipbuilders, he noted growing recognition of South Korea's shipbuilding industry on the global stage.
국제적인 관심도가 높아지다가 소위 마스가라고 미국의 대규모 투자 사업의 핵심 아이템으로 조선 산업이 또 선정돼 있기도 합니다. 앞으로 이 부분은 매우 여러 가지 많은 가능성과 잠재력을 가지고 있는데.
He was looking for what the government can do to help, noting a great discrepancy during times of a boom and recession, which also affects the livelihoods of workers in the field. The president called for creating a fair compensation system.
그 성장의 과실들이 골고루 좀 나눠지고 또 회사 내에서도 사용자와 노동자가 함께 그 과실을 누릴 수 있는 그런 시스템을 만드는 것도 중요한 일일 것 같습니다.
High on the agenda was raising its competitiveness amid a fierce global race.
If China excels in the LNG carrier sector, it's hard for us to catch up. We own the building technology, but what's key is demonstration, especially for large vessels.
Some have called for more support in financing.
Smaller shipbuilders like us have no choice but to give up major contracts because we couldn't get a refund guarantee.
Present were major and smaller shipbuilders alike, representatives of workers in the field, and financial institutions. After the session, President Lee toured an exhibition booth showcasing robots and cutting-edge technologies applied in the shipbuilding sector. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Chu Ji-hyun, and this is The World Now. The U.S. Senate has confirmed Kevin Warsh as the next Federal Reserve Chair. The most partisan Fed confirmation vote in American history saw a 54-45 split on Wednesday as inflation accelerates to its fastest pace in 3 years, and rate hikes are now openly on the table. Warsh takes over from Jerome Powell, whose term ends on Friday. Trump, currently in China, has signaled he will sign the paperwork immediately. The president picked Warsh, expecting him to cut rates, but producer prices jumped 6% in April, the fastest pace since 2022, making cuts increasingly difficult to justify. Markets now expect no rate cuts this year and a possible hike next year. OPEC on Wednesday cut its forecast for global oil demand growth in 2026, citing the Iran war's effective closure of the Strait of Hormuz, which has blocked millions of barrels of Middle East output and sent fuel prices surging worldwide. The group cut its second quarter demand forecast by a further 500,000 barrels per day and now expects full-year demand to grow by 1.17 million barrels per day, down from a previous forecast of 1.38 million barrels a day. OPEC Plus output fell by 1.74 million barrels per day in April alone due to the Strait of Hormuz closure. The group did raise its 2027 demand growth forecast by 200,000 barrels per day to 1.54 million, signaling it expects a rebound once the conflict is resolved. Meta on Wednesday launched a fully private AI chat feature on WhatsApp called Incognito Chat. Conversations are processed in a secure environment that even Meta itself cannot access, and messages disappear by default. The company says unlike other incognito-style modes that still allow platforms to see incoming and outgoing messages, this feature is genuinely invisible. It is designed for sensitive questions on topics like health, finances, or personal matters. Cybersecurity experts warn about serious accountability concerns, as if something goes wrong, there would be no chat history to investigate. The feature is being rolled out gradually on WhatsApp and on the Meta AI app in the coming months. A drug counselor who supplied the ketamine that killed actor Matthew Perry has been sentenced to 2 years in federal prison. Eric Fleming was sentenced on Wednesday in Los Angeles after pleading guilty to distributing the drug that caused a friend star's death in October 2023. He sold Perry 51 vials of liquid ketamine, knowing the actor had a history of addiction. In court, Fleming said he was, quote, haunted by his actions and mortified he played any role in Perry's death. A woman known as the Ketamine Queen was sentenced last month to 15 years for her role in the same case.
Dense fog was affecting western regions early this morning, but the fog will clear quickly as temperatures rise. The western regions will feel more like the middle of summer today under sunny skies, with Seoul seeing highs of 31 degrees Celsius this afternoon, Gwangju at 29 degrees with some passing rain, but the east coast regions will have cooler highs due to easterly winds. And about that passing rain, Jeollado provinces and parts of Gyeongsang-Namdo province could see 5 to 20 millimeters of rainfall along with thunderstorms later this afternoon. But the rest of the country will be under plenty of sunshine and UV rays will be very strong nationwide this afternoon. So have your summer gear ready, and with the heat and sunshine, it's going to feel more like late July. And this unusual heat will continue into early next week before rain arrives by midweek, helping temperatures return closer to normal levels.
Now that's all we have for this morning. Arirang News will be back at noon Korea time. Thanks for watching.